Michael, today we're going to take a deep dive into the Medicare application process for Original Medicare. First thing we want to note is please keep in mind everybody's situations are different. No two situations are identical. It really depends on where you worked at, where you retired from, how many quarters you worked in, did you pay taxes, all your Medicare taxes, are you a spouse of somebody that paid taxes and you didn't work, you were just maybe a homemaker. So we want to always keep that in mind that if you talk to somebody else, their situation may be completely different than yours, and we might give them different advice.
How would they find out if they've got enough quarters?
All right, so to find out if you have enough quarters, you get mailed a statement from Social Security, but you can also log into ssa.gov. That's the Social Security Administration, and it's going to let you know how many quarters you've worked, if you qualify for Social Security benefits, and or if you qualify for Medicare benefits.
Yeah, an average person, if they've had any kind of work history, if they started working when they're in their 20s, after a W-2 job, and they've worked any kind of time, they generally have those 40 quarters.
Right. Now, individuals over 65 that have paid Medicare taxes for at least 40 quarters, they qualify to apply for Medicare. Spouses of individuals who have paid Medicare taxes for 40 quarters also qualify. So let's say there's a homemaker in the family. There's a couple. One person worked their whole life. The other person, shuffled around kids, sports, all that good stuff, and didn't work. They had a big home life. They can actually draw off the spouse. Now, we're going to get into that shortly. If you're under the age of 65 and you have a disability, you may qualify for Medicare coverage. A qualifying disability is almost any health condition that prevents you from being able to work enough to access employer-sponsored health care benefits. Before you can enroll in Medicare, you must receive Social Security disability for a minimum of 24 months. There's a couple situations where that 24-month waiting period is waived. That's if you have end-stage renal disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. So if you have one of those three diagnoses, that 24-month period is waived, and you can actually get on Medicare immediately after you're diagnosed. Michael, when do I apply for Medicare? When can I apply?
Well, if you're new to Medicare, turning 65, you can apply up to 3 months before your birthday month. Earlier the better. And the reason we say that is, although you do have those 3 month window, it's like anything else. The process can get held up because we've had them go through like almost immediately, and then we've had some that just kind of linger on, and you got to keep calling and finding out. And of course, that puts people in a little stress situation when their coverage is ending in about 20 days and they've not gotten any progress.
We've got a couple of those right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we try to tell people when we first encounter them, hey, you got plenty of time. However, let's go ahead and get the process started. Let's get it in so that you're just sitting on go, ready, waiting for the day to come. So again, earlier is the better. If you're over 65 and retiring, you may lose your group coverage, and then you got to make that choice. Allow up to 6 weeks for processing, as the situation can take much longer. Now, obviously, we've had people that say, hey, I'm over 65. I just lost my job. I need to apply for Medicare. We've had it work out where we've been able to get it within a couple of weeks. That's not the norm. That's not the ideal situation. So you want to, if you know that you're retiring and you have a date in mind, reach out to us and say, look, in 2 months, in 60 days, I'm out of here and I want to get my Medicare started. So you want, again, more time, the better, but don't be afraid if it happens. If it's something you weren't planning on, and it does happen because that has occurred, just get to us right away and let us get that application in, because there's a couple things you'll need to send in, and we'll get to that in a minute. But then you talk about, how do I apply?
Yeah, so just a side note from what Michael just said, if you are 65 and older and you're eligible for Medicare, but you've had group coverage, like he said, the earlier the better. It takes approximately 4 to 6 weeks from the day that we submit your application for Medicare A and or B, whenever you're losing employer coverage. So That takes a longer time than actually when you're making 65 when we do an application for you. That process is usually 1 to 2 weeks. So if you are leaving an employer, please let us know a couple months ahead so we can get that ball rolling.
Yeah.
How do I apply? There's several ways to apply for Medicare. The easiest way, if you have an agent or broker such as ourselves that knows the process, that can guide you with that, that is the easiest way. We take the ball, we do the whole thing for you, and you just kind of sit back and answer questions.
Yeah.
The second way is the second easiest way is to go online and apply. It's www.ssa.gov. It is a little bit more strenuous today than it has been in the past. They have some extra security measures, such as sending copies of your driver's license in, taking a picture of yourself, and sending a verification code to a common phone number associated with your name, which can be a little tricky. Sometimes it's a landline, sometimes it's a cell phone number. We know how to do the whole process. Give us a holler. We'll be more than happy to help you. The third way is to call Social Security at 800-772-1213, and you could set up a phone or a in-person appointment, and they can guide you on applying there.
Yeah, but be prepared. If you choose the third option, calling Social Security number 1, it's very difficult to get them on the phone.
Yep, sure is.
The best time to call, honestly, is 9:05 because they open their phone lines at 9 o'clock in the morning. So your best chance of getting somebody is early in the morning. The other thing is be prepared that when you do get one, it's not like, yeah, we'll set it up for this week or in a few days. I've seen it go out as far as a month and a half. So, the point would be if you're in a time crunch, you probably want to reach out to an experienced broker to have them help you navigate that, because that's truly the easiest and quickest way to do it. We don't charge anything. There's no cost to you to do it. So you might as well have somebody take care of that for you. So I would just say that, the third choice, calling, is probably the last choice.
No doubt. And Michael, how do I apply for Medicare A, Medicare Part B, and or Medicare Part D? When do I do that? How?
Well, it depends on if you're working for a company of a certain size. And what I mean by that is if you are in a group plan and you are under 20 employees, not necessarily 20 employees on the plan, but under 20, then you must apply for Medicare A and B when you turn before you turn 65, so you're ready to go at 65. Because in that situation, the plan, Medicare will pay first, plan will pay second. But if you're in a company that is over 20 employees, a large group, then you're exempt from that as long as you want to be. But we still have people that say, is it better for me to be on Medicare? That's where it comes into the point when you say, come and visit with us. And we will tell you honestly, full transparency, hey, we think it's better for you to stay on your group plan based on your medication needs, your health condition, or how good your plan is.
Right.
We'll tell you, hey, stay where you are as long as you can. That's a good situation. But if we see that it's a savings, because you may be on a company that's really not paying a lot of the costs, and we can save you some dollars just by going on Medicare. And it also depends on what your income is, because your Part B premium could be higher if you're a high earner. So there's a lot of things that go into making that decision that we're familiar with, so we can help you with that. So again, it depends on the size of the company. Again, under 20, you got to do it now, because you're not exempt from applying for A and B. And one of the things that could happen if your company doesn't catch that, or the carrier, down the road, if you have a claim, they could come back and say, hey, you're on an under 20 employer company. We're not going to pay this claim because you should have been on Medicare. So that's not something a lot of people either know about or pay attention to. We do pay attention to that. So again, if you're under 20, be aware. If you're contributing to an HSA, you want to make sure that if you are contributing to the HSA, you got to stop those contributions 6 months prior to going on Medicare, because you cannot contribute once you're on Medicare. You can still use the funds that are in there, but you can no longer contribute. So these are all the things that we know, and we're hoping to get a hold of you early in the process so we can kind of lay all this information out for you.
And if you're in a large group, which is considered credible coverage, do not apply for Medicare A if you're contributing to an HSA. If you want to continue to contribute to that health savings account, put A and B off. Just don't apply for it now.
Yeah. And, one of the things that Yeah, and I guess it's people that put fear in our clients that aren't necessarily knowledgeable enough about it, because we get them all the time. Hey, I don't want a penalty. How do I avoid getting penalized? Well, if you are on a group plan, you will not be penalized unless it's under 20. So I've had people that come into Medicare in their 70s because they stayed employed, they worked in a large group,
Right.
And they had no reason to be on Medicare. So you want to make sure it's credible coverage. You got to continue to be working. Now, if your spouse is the one that's working, and you're both 65, even though you're not working, you're on that group plan, that does also include you. So you do not have to get your Medicare at that time. Again, if it's a large group, if you're less than 20, you have to get on that get on Medicare to avoid those penalties.
If it's less than 20, you got to get on Medicare A, B, and D. If you do not, and your company is less than 20, it's not considered credible, and you will incur a penalty for Part D, which is your drugs, 1% per month. It builds up, and that penalty is monthly for life. And in Part B as in boy, if your company is under 20, you don't apply for Medicare B, it's a 10% penalty per year that is added on to your base premium.
Yeah.
So it can grow pretty significantly, and the problem is it's there every month until you die. It does not go away.
Right. And the Part D penalty is obviously a lot less because it's a smaller number. And more than anything, it's a nuisance. Who wants to pay $5 a month for the rest of their life?
Right. Because
they didn't get Medicare Part D. So, again, there's a lot of information floating around out there on the internet, your friends, your family, and they may not really understand the process. So, we just try to encourage people, reach out to somebody. If it's not us, reach out to somebody that's
Right.
in the business that can tell you the rules and keep you from, something that you fear that may not even happen. What if you're still working, you're on group coverage, what would we do to somebody when they come in?
So obviously we deal with this often as we get into the 2025s, 2030s, 2035s. People are working longer. They're not retiring at a young age. Back in the day, people were retiring at 55 years old. That is not the case. We got folks working until 70, 75 years old, and they call because they're about to make 65 and they don't know what to do. So what we request is their current plan, what they're paying, what their benefits package. It's called a summary of benefits, and we actually compare all their costs, and we take into consideration their income and things like that, and then we compare that to if we were to get off that group, what would Medicare look like? A full summary of what my cost is, what my deductibles, what the plans look like, and we do a side-by-side comparison, and we're going to be very transparent. If your employer coverage is just bar none, we can't touch it, we're going to tell you stay where you are and stay on there as long as you can, or hey, we can definitely hook you up, save you some dollars, get you a better plan, come see us. Here, let's start the process.
Yeah, and the reason we do it that way, and I know I've experienced it, you've experienced it, it happens all the time. We get somebody will come in and we'll go through the process and we'll say, you know what, you're really good where you are. Let's just leave it alone. Your situation might change next year, the year after. I've had people call me 2-3 years down the road that say, hey, I remember I came in and talked to you about my benefits. It wasn't at the time right for me to make a move, but
Right.
I am retiring or the company's going out of business, whatever the situation. They remember that. So, we look at that as putting our work in, putting our work in for the people that come to see us. We're not looking at, hey, this is not a sale today, because we don't view it as that. We're here to help people. We are in business to enroll in plans, but it's just building that pipeline of clients. We want them to trust what we're telling them is true, that we know what we're doing, and that we're here to help them, whether it's today, tomorrow, or next year, or 5 years from now. So don't be afraid. If you think, hey, it's too early, I'm not ready to retire, come on in. Let us talk to you, at least give you a roadmap for the next year to 2 years. And that way you kind of know when that time comes, you have some information to make a really good informed decision. And we hope you come back, but if you don't, at least you had that information. So we really try to do a good job at counseling people and not making them feel like it's a pressure situation, because we don't really care about that. We want them to be well informed, make a good decision, and eventually we're going to get them back as a client, and then we'll have them for the rest of the time. So, one of the things that comes up when people do apply, they're like, okay, how do I apply? Which you already covered about, who you call, where you call, when you call. But are there some forms that we need to make sure that the general public knows about that they can access?
So if you decide, hey, I want to delay Medicare, I'm going to stay on my group coverage, and let's say now you're 68 and God forbid you get laid off, or you just say, you know what, I got a bunch of grandkids at home, I want to go ahead and retire. There are some forms that we need to fill out to submit to Medicare. One form is going to be a Medicare Part B application, 40B. And there's another form, it's a L564E. E stands for English. We want all this in English. And that's an employer verification form. That tells Medicare, hey, this person had credible coverage from the time they made 65 up until today, and it waives any penalties that you would incur if you did not have credible coverage.
Yeah.
So those two documents are very important. You can find them at ssa.gov. That's the Social Security Administration's website. Go into the search bar and just type in 40B. There's going to be an English and a Spanish version, and then you can do the same with the L564.
Yeah.
Very easy to find. If you need help filling them out, we're here for you. We know how to submit them. You can fax them in. You can submit them online. We always suggest if you do fax them in, to fax them into your local Social Security Administration office. We have those fax numbers for you. You just let us know what zip code you're in.
Yeah, and if you're having trouble finding the forms, because there's different versions of them, years, and make sure you get the most current version. But you can always contact us, and we could email that out to you if you really, if you're having trouble getting them. So or stop by the office and pick up a form, and we'll help you fill it out. The thing that I want to make sure people understand about the L564, which is the employer verification form, is you want to make sure, especially if you work for a company where maybe the HR department is not local to you, you can't just access them. You give them plenty of time, because you imagine they're dealing with a lot of different people, especially in a large company, and sometimes they don't turn that form around in 2 days. You got to send it to them. The right person's got to fill it out, sign off on it, date it, and get it back to you, and then you got to get it into us to send in. So that the 40B is you fill that out, so you can fill it out in 5 minutes in front of us. But the L564, the employer verification form, has to be completed by your HR department. And again, they're just verifying that, yes, John has had coverage under our group plan since he was age 65, because that's really what they care about. Even though it asks you how long have you had the plan, the date they're looking at is to make sure that start date occurred before you turned 65.
Right.
And then it's continuing on, because you may not have left your company yet, but you're now applying for Medicare, because there's a part on there that says, has coverage ended? No, I'm still working. So you want to make sure, if you got any question about those forms, that we fill them out correctly and we get them in for you. We talked about how you get those forms. It's, again, online, or give us a call. We'll get them to you. Kind of the last thing is, what if I've never worked before, but my spouse has worked?
So we talked about this a little earlier in this conversation, but there's a process here. So if your spouse is younger than you, I ran into this recently, so it's fresh on my brain. If your spouse is younger than you and you make 65 and you've never worked before, you have not paid in enough quarters to qualify for Medicare, you would qualify under your spouse, but not until they make 65. So the process is, you call Social Security, you apply for Medicare. They deny you. They say, look, you don't qualify yet because your husband or wife is not 65 yet. Whenever they're about to make 65, you apply again and you get approved. The reason you want to apply when you're making 65, even if you don't qualify, is that waives all the penalties. I just ran into a lady recently who is 6 years older than her husband, and she is having to pay a 60% penalty for her Part B, 6 years, and she's paying 72% penalty for her Part D because she didn't apply and get denied. And I didn't know these folks until recently, so I didn't guide them. I couldn't guide them 6 years ago because I didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
But whoever they dealt with, they called and they were told misinformation, and they are having to pay a very hefty fine, if you will, every month until they die. So make sure when you're making 65, if your spouse is younger than you, and you've never worked before, or you had limited work experience, that you call and make an appointment and you apply for Medicare and you get that denial, because that denial is what waives the penalties. Okay.
Yeah.
It's tricky, but that's just the way it is. And then when your spouse is about to make 65, y'all can apply together and you will be approved.
Yeah. One of the things that I feel like we do that's a really good service to our clients or somebody new is we'll actually make that call to Social Security with you. I do it all the time. We set up a time to call. We do a 3-way call to Social Security. It's not that I don't want to call them for you. It's just they won't talk to me.
Yeah, we can't.
Because they're going to want to know, they want to have the person on the line with you. But once we get a hold of Social Security and say, I'm so-and-so, I've got my client Joe Smith on the line, I'd like to help them navigate these questions. Because sometimes it helps if we hear what they're telling you rather than you regurgitate it back to us, and then we can kind of ask the questions we want to ask. So don't be afraid to contact us. Say, hey, I'd like to call Social Security. I've got some issues with applying for Medicare. Can you give me a hand? We're not going to say, hey, you make the call and just let us know what they say. If you feel comfortable doing that, that's great. But we have plenty of people that say, look, would you mind making the call with me? We have no problem doing that. That's just part of our kind of the way we operate. So I would encourage anybody that's listening, if you have any questions about Medicare, reach out to us. Again, it doesn't matter if you're 2 years ahead of schedule. It's always good to get that information and kind of figure out what I need to do in the future, because ultimately we just want to be your agent or agency for life, and that's how we operate our business.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, John.
Thank you, buddy.
Hope you enjoyed our discussion today on Plus 65 Digital. Reach out to us at info@plus65advisors.com or give us a call at 225-408-4100. Make Plus 65 Advisors part of your Medicare process.